I wanted to start by, I guess, asking Steve a question by way of context. Maybe, Steve, you could briefly outline for us some of the key influences on your life, and I guess, as part of that, maybe raise some of the issues that bring us all to be here today.
Thanks, Matt. First of all, I'm really thrilled that there's such an amazing diversity of people from different parts of my life here. Firstly, because if I say anything that's not accurate, you have the opportunity to correct those. I mean, I think it's amazing how we perceive life differently from our different perspectives, and really all I can share with you is mine. I do try to reflect carefully about what's my agenda in all of this, as well as what might be yours, but or what might be other perspectives. But it's really amazing to me to have people from all the different parishes that I've been part of, or most of the different parishes I've been part of. People from my extended and my closer family, and people who have shared the professional and kind of change-making journey with me in a variety of ways. Like Joy, who was one of my first social work supervisors as a second year or third year uni student, is here. And in front of her is Bari, who was a student who worked with me when we were setting up Peninsula Community Services. And so it was part of that journey. So it's kind of amazing to have that sort of diversity here. And I think, you know, you will each have your own input, so feel free to either correct or at least add to the picture. I'm interested especially in sharing what is useful for us in action and doing in the world we live in today, rather than the 70s or the 80s or wherever, but I am reflecting on what happened during those eras. And my tendency has been to focus on action and reflection in my life, trying to reflect carefully about what I'm learning and where I'm screwing up and so on, and then learn from there and move on and act further. So that's kind of, and I try and integrate practice and theory or theology or whatever you want into that. Some basic facts about my story that kind of help give you the different slices of life I've lived through. I was born in 52. My parents were pharmacists living in Ashfield. Strong Methodist heritage. Their family came from strong Methodist families, so my grandfather on one side was the president of the Methodist Church in Australia, John Gladwell Wing, and on my father's side they had been missionaries in Goulburn Island in Northern Territory, working in the Aboriginal community there. So, you know, I kind of draw on that long heritage of Christian tradition, differently understood today, and hopefully differently understood from when I've been in business, if you like. My parents moved to the South Coast in about 55, partly because my mother's periods of depression and the messy family environment that she was in meant my father wanted to get away and felt that that was going to be better for all of us. I went to the Elora Grammar School. My parents in 1959 went forward at the Billy Graham Crusade, and that had a profound influence on us as a family. As a 10-year-old, I went forward and made a personal commitment to faith in 1962 at the Joe Blinko Crusade. So, you know, kind of following that tradition. My parents then, when I was 12, I think, went to Tarlee Bible College for 2 years on the north coast, well, kind of near Karua on Port Stephens. That was quite a fundamentalist, I guess you would call it, environment. Then they came back to the Elora. I continued at TIGS, and I recall as a young person moving from a relatively lonely bookworm to deciding that that wasn't fun and you needed to get to be a leader if you wanted to kind of flower as a human being. Now, it's not something that I was thinking through in those conceptual terms, but I figured that, so I got involved in debating, in drama, setting up an explorers club in our school, and doing a bunch of, I was the school captain, and you know, those kind of things started to influence me. Then my dad organised a work experience placement for me at with the Newcastle Youth Service with a guy by the name of Trevor Waring, who is now the Chancellor of Newcastle University, who had such an amazing influence on me when I look back and encouraged me in doing social work. So that's the kind of journey I went through. Then I did very badly in the HSC, but because I was male, they let me into social work. It's amazing, these things, you know. Gender does help. I also figured that I got more out of the informal, the extracurricular, than I did out of the curricula, both at school and to some extent at university. In the 70s, I was 71 to 74, I was at New South Wales doing social work. I lived in New College for a year. Then I got a DOCS cadetship with the state government too. So they paid me to do social work, if you like, and I worked in the department and in its worst environments in the 70s, which was an amazing experience. I moved into Central Methodist Mission, as it was called, Jesus Commune for a year in 1972, then into a community house at Willow Street in Kingsford, which we bought together, a bunch of us. Then I was married in 73 and joined St Mark's Church at Malabar, which was an amazing experience for me, coming into a live family community kind of church where stuff was starting to really happen. Strong charismatic kind of influence, whereas I guess I was more a Christian lefty, if you like, in those days. So that kind of influence was added to my repertoire. I then worked for DOCS as a community service consultant for a couple of years. Got sick of working in government. It didn't really allow me the creative room to manoeuvre, and the parish at some point, I think David Crawford, my father-in-law, who was the rector, challenged me as to whether all the whinging I was doing about the church I really meant, and whether I would contemplate leaving my job and coming and seeing if my theory would work in our parish. And this was when the community was beginning. It began in 75. Then in 77, thanks, Peter. Then in 77, Anne and I travelled for about 8 months around the world looking at alternative Christian ministries everywhere from Indonesia, India, various countries around Europe, and then Britain and the US. We visited the community celebration, which was quite an important influence on us and our parish over subsequent years. In 78, a group of people from the community celebration in Cumbria, Scotland, joined us for a year. During that period, we also set up Insular Community Services, which was the first kind of ministry agency in the community. We did all kinds of things, mud brick village, community murals. During that time, Rebecca was born at home, so we got into the home birth business. We also created a network of alternative communities of groups like us around, kind of connected together with the group around Australia. The parish had a Fisherfolk Worship Conference. So it was quite a ferment of, I guess you could say, entrepreneurial Christianity within a relatively straight down the line kind of parish, although the charismatic influence on the parish brought us under the attention of the diocese, and at times we found that quite difficult. So Workventures, or Peninsula Community Services as it began, was also growing steadily to the point where it became financially bigger than the parish in some respects, and we started to worry that the tail was wagging the dog, you know, that the parish was, if you like, being overloaded by having a ministry agency within it. So we actually separately incorporated that body, and we formed significant relationships both with government and corporate sector. We formed Australia's longest standing partnership with Microsoft anywhere in the world. Microsoft doesn't have a longer standing partner than Workventures. Also strong relationships with IBM and others. My marriage broke down in 2001, despite some years of counselling prior to. That was also the year of Workventures' biggest profit. I don't know whether they're related, but also after that point, Workventures itself started getting the wobbles as an organisation. It started going through some quite challenging times. I think that was a fair bit to do with CEO hubris, if you like, or ambition. We took over a number of organisations, we lost a bunch of money, a number of our projects were not really sustainable. Mind you, at this time, about 2004 I remarried. I was awarded Entrepreneur of the Year. We won a Prime Minister's Award with Microsoft for our community partnership. 2007 I was diagnosed with bowel cancer. Took a year off, you know, during all that surgery stuff, and made the decision to stand down as the CEO. I realised it wasn't life-giving for me anymore, and it wasn't life-giving for the organisation. It needed a new kind of leadership. So I became founder and social entrepreneur for a year, where I worked out how I was going to kind of transition out of the organisation, because 27 years is a long time in one place. We created ASICS, the Australian Social Innovation Exchange, and also at that time the School for Social Entrepreneurs. I was offered the role as the chair of Bonnyrigg Management, which is an organisation that has a 30-year contract with the state government to, if you like, transform the Bonnyrigg public housing estate. And I did a bunch of other things during that period. 2009 I was diagnosed with terminal bowel cancer because my bowel cancer had come back in my liver and my lungs. At the same time I won an Order of Australia, which was a massive surprise to me. Prue, who's here, did pretty much a good deal of the work on that, together with Catherine and Peter and a variety of other people who are here today. For me, that was an extraordinary public recognition of my contribution. It means a lot to me. Although I know thousands of other people who should have got that award, or should get that award. My dad died about 3 weeks ago, and so that's raised a whole bunch of family and other issues in my life. He was determined to die before me. And he did it. There's still a bunch of incomplete stuff in my life, and I've got about 4 to 6 months left. So this is the challenging next phase of life adventure I'm about to begin.